Sup? No. Right.
This happened when I was only 5 years old.
Right.
I remember that my family was coming back home from my grandparents' cottage that day. While on the way home, I started to have an extremely painful toothache. It was so strong that I was crying and screaming out in pain. So my mom searched the internet for the nearest hospital. Unfortunately, the only one around the area we were in was a mental hospital, which only had a dentist room for the patients of the hospital and for some emergency situations. As my mom was...
It's a setup. It has to be a setup. A mental joke? A mental joke. I would have been a backseat talking about some. It hurts so bad. We gotta stop anywhere. A mental. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. Just keep going. You soak that tear right back up in there. I ain't tell you to come out.
But not this man. Get back in there, tear.
What is that? Cloudy from a chance of meatballs? I'm glad.
Nervous about the patients, we immediately ran to the dentist's room. The dentist was in his early 40s,
Jesus.
bald, and I remember that he had a really weird, kind of funny look about him. As we walked in, I guess he was annoyed about the fact that I was crying back then.
So the mom or dad or the brother don't see anything wrong with this mother clucker at all. It's not the fact that he's old and 40. It's not the fact that he's sweating profusely. I don't know if I said that right. It's not the fact that he pulled down his whole mask inside of a hospital. No, it's not that. It's not the fact that one eye is abnormally bigger than the other one. No, it's not that. It's not the fact that one pupil is bigger than the other. Jesus.
Hey, kid, shut up.
Oh, no.
Real men don't cry, he said. I was just a 5-year-old boy. My dad got pissed off, but he controlled himself because we weren't able to find another doctor. Suddenly, the dentist became super sweet and told me to sit on the chair.
My ass.
While he was checking my mouth, he seemed kind of nervous, but he was also saying some jokes to my 7-year-old brother. My brother started laughing, and then what the dentist did almost made my heart drop. He screamed to my brother, "Stop laughing or I'll take your brother's teeth out, one by..."
God damn! Who says that shit? I spit everywhere. You had me at the telling a kid to shut up. Jesus.
One. It was enough. He was a weirdo, and at that point, my dad was furious. He was about to beat up this madman, but thankfully my mom calmed him down. Of course, my brother got scared and started crying. He told him to get out because he was so annoying that he couldn't do his work. So Dad got out with my brother and Mom stayed with me. Being paranoid, my mom didn't feel comfortable about leaving 5-year-old me behind with a weird stranger. I remember clearly that he looked at me in a very weird way that gave me the creeps. Just then, Mom asked him if she could use the toilet that was in the room. "Oh, sorry, ma'am. This isn't a restroom. It's a room we keep old stuff, he said, but we could clearly see the restroom sign on the door and even hear the noise of running water that the toilet made. From that moment until the end, the dentist seemed anxious. He was sweating and his hands were shaking. When he finished with my tooth, we immediately left and went home, and my mom called her sister to tell her everything about the incident. A week after, my aunt called my mom. "Did you see the news?" She told us that she saw a dentist who had killed a woman in her late 20s.
Jesus.
And he was keeping her in his clinic's bathroom for almost a week.
They couldn't smell that shit? I don't know how long it takes for a body after it's been deceased. You can smell the body. It starts to rotten. But I feel like after a week, give or take, you could smell something.
And the place was the same hospital where we had gone before. Shaking her hands, Mom turned on the TV. And there he was. It was the same man who had checked my tooth. That explained his weird behavior and why he didn't let my mom use the bathroom. A dead body was only a few meters away from me and my family.
Jesus.
The dentist was diagnosed with schizophrenia and finally sentenced to death.
He also should have been diagnosed with cluckness.
I'm so glad that my mom didn't go to the bathroom anyway. And from my experience, I learned something that I want to share with you guys. If you ever notice that someone has a weird behavior that makes you feel uncomfortable, don't just stay there.
Haul ass.
Find an excuse and immediately leave. And this might save your life.
No. Excuse my ass. You just haul ass. What you talking about? Nah. Don't say nothing. You know there's some weird shit going on. You know there's some such shit going on, some cluck shit going on. You haul ass. Haul ass. I got a headache. Oh, that hurt. Is that it? Oh.
So this happened last year when I was house sitting for my neighbor. He was in the hospital for a few days recovering from surgery, and I had been asked to stay in the house and keep an eye on his cats. The house was pretty small, but it was on a nice wide open property by the woods. And there was a tiny swinging cat flap on the kitchen door where the cats could come and go as they pleased. The flap led into a screened-in back porch, and the house only had one bedroom. So I chose to sleep on the couch in the living room. After cleaning up, feeding the cats, and watching some TV.
I don't know how to feel about that little cat thing. The thing for the door so cats can come and go as they please. I just want it to be big enough for a cat and not no small person, let alone a normal sized person. Just the right amount of size for a cat and nothing else.
I shut off all the lights and laid back on the couch. I had my phone out and was casually scrolling through Facebook when I heard the flap swinging back and forth.
Hell no.
From where I was in the living room, I couldn't see the door because the counter was in the way, but I glanced over to see one of the cats scamper over and leap up on my legs. I gave it a welcoming pat on the head and continued scrolling. After another minute, I heard the cat door make a noise again, a soft squeak. This time, I didn't even glance over, figuring it was the second cat following the first into the house. Another few moments passed. Then I heard the squeaking again, and then after another moment, it squeaked a third time. I looked up from my phone, wondering why the second cat was jumping in and out like that. I was wondering if I would have to scoop it up and put it in the bedroom. The door continued to squeak for another couple of minutes as the second cat continued to jump in and out. I finally decided that I had enough. I put my phone down and sat up on the couch. I began to stretch. As I did, I happened to glance behind the couch, and my blood froze. The second cat was curled up in its bed in the corner, and the first cat was still nestled between my legs. My confusion turned to fear instantly. Was there another animal on the back porch? Another cat, maybe? I slowly stood up and carefully made my way over to the back door, tiptoeing across the carpet in my socks. The door made a squeaking noise again. I peered around the counter and felt the sensation of my heart leaping up into my throat. And at the same moment, my stomach dropped. By the faint rays
Jesus!
in the hallway, I saw an arm reaching through the cat door, straining to get at the knob.
You know what? Forget. You know, they just gonna be house cats from now on. Forget that shit. Forget the little flabby shit. Forget the little flabby shit. Hell no. What the fuck? Oh my God. That right there is a sight that you will never forget. Nightmares on nightmares on nightmares for all of eternity. I promise you. Oh my God. Hold on, my eyeball. Something in my... Okay.
The fingertips were brushing at the lock. For a few short seconds, all I could do was stare in terror.
Are you dead ass right now? You dead ass right now. I don't know if that person can see you or anything in the house, but you are completely free. You can do whatever you want. Right? I would suggest you get a hammer, a sledgehammer, a mallet, something with some weight to it. And either one good time or a couple of good times, or just on repeat, you bash his arms, his arm, his hand, his fingers, I'm about to say toenails, his fingernails. You break all of that shit. If it was me, I would have had an Adidas bat right next to the door with some good weight on it. One good time. Oh my God, I know that shit would hurt. And I'm a little crazy too, so I would have did it.
Frozen by the surreal silent reality of what I was experiencing.
She bullshitting.
It almost didn't feel real. The severity...
What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing? Look at that shit. You got a little thing in there with some scissors and some other pointy shit. Cluck his arm up. You over there standing there talking about some...
The situation hit me, and I realized that if the intruder got in, I wasn't going to stand a chance. I grabbed a large two-pronged fork that was used for flipping steaks on a grill, and in one swift motion, I stabbed at the arm right below the wrist as hard as I could. There came a thunderous scream of pain from the other side of the door. And the arm was immediately retracted through the flap. But the fork hadn't...
Nah. See, you doing too much. You gave him way too much grace. I would have did something so his arm is like stuck there. And I would have beat his arm until it broke. Until it did not even look like an arm. Call me ruthless. Call me Spider-Man with Tom Holland beating Green Goblin at the end of the movie like that. That shit was brutal. That shit was brutal. If it wasn't for Toby saving him, spoiler warning, he would have killed him.
The intruder, so it caught itself on the door. That produced a second loud scream, and the arm was wrenched violently outside. I heard the clatter of the fork on the ground and then I heard footsteps sprint across the back porch and out the screen door. I immediately turned on the outside lights and caught the glimpse of a figure running towards the woods. Instead of calling the cops, I scooped up both cats, stuffed them into the same carrier, grabbed my phone, my shoes, and sprinted out to my car, which was thankfully parked inside the garage. I drove up the road a couple of miles to my place, and once I was safely inside, I called the cops. It took them half an hour to get to my place, and then another half hour of questioning before they continued down the road to check out my neighbor's house. They told me that there was no sign that the screen door had been broken into, and aside from the bloodstains, there was no sign of the intruder. They put out an alert to local hospitals for a man with a stab wound on his right arm. The following morning, the police brought a dog out to follow the scent, but whoever the lucky bastard was, he was never caught. I kept the cats at my place until my neighbor was out of the hospital. It still shakes me to my soul, the idea that the stranger chose that house in the middle of nowhere, trying to get inside. And if I hadn't got off the couch when I did, this may have ended very differently.
What did you say though? Go back. What did you say about the...
They put out an alert to local hospitals for a man with a stab wound. He was never caught. I kept the cats at my place until my neighbor was out of the hospital. It still shakes me to my soul, the idea that the stranger chose that house.
It still shakes you to your soul that they chose... Wait, what you say?
The idea that the stranger chose that house in the middle of nowhere, trying to get inside.
So, it just, I guess it just seems, crazy, it baffles you, that it's just, that a stranger would pick a house that's in the middle of nowhere. That's probably the I don't know how you would say, like, that's probably like one of the main reasons why a stranger would pick a house in the middle of nowhere. Because if the guy, let's say, I was a stranger, I was that guy. I'm gonna go for the one in the middle of nowhere because first of all, there's no surroundings, there's no neighbors, right? So the chances of me getting away with something is pretty high. Then the chances of me attacking you and you, hollering or screaming or whatever, or trying to get somebody to notice you is pretty low because you don't got no neighbors. The chances of the stranger clucking you up to the max in a house in the middle of nowhere is high, way higher than a person that's gonna do it in, let's say, a suburban neighborhood. Come on. Why would you even? It's the middle of nowhere. It's the middle of nowhere. The middle of nowhere. So, yeah. Keep it cold, keep it classy. And I love you, stay happy, my family.